It's been raining for 3 days straight here in South Japan. Today some of the rivers in my city have overflown and now the government is calling it a natural disaster. It's pretty wild outside, but don't worry about me. I'm huddled inside with some hot coffee and playing my favorite video games. It's just one of the realities of living in Southeast Asia that sometimes the weather will go, I'm stronger than you and I'm gonna fuck up your day. So yeah, here in Japan nature is a little bit of a Dragonov main, let's say. I wanted to play some Katarina today and I wanted to talk about the character. I play her every once in a while and then forget about her for about 5 months and then come back to her. And I thought instead of doing a discussion video and gameplay separately, maybe I'll just give you the gameplay right here as sort of a visual aid, and then we'll talk about the character over it, and hopefully that comes out as an enjoyable video. We'll see what happens. The reason I want to talk about Katarina is I've been thinking about the fact that she is such a disliked character in this game. And I happen to think that's probably a little bit less justified than most people think. This is basically going to be a video in the defense of Katarina, which I know will make some people just dislike it right away, but hopefully you will give me enough of the benefit of the doubt that you at least hear me out and then let me know what you think about the character in the comments. I played Katarina for the first time way back in the arcade days of Tekken 7. I thought it was really cool that we got a new character that I thought looked awesome first of all, and I still do. People dislike Katarina these days mainly because of her gameplay design, and I think that blinds them to the fact that she actually is one of the coolest looking characters ever. The only thing they sort of made a mistake with her visual design is that even though she's supposed to be a brunette, which you see in all of her art, in game her hair ends up looking very red, and so I just change her hair to brown. That's one of the few times I customize my character and she ends up looking a lot better. But yeah, looks amazing and feels amazing to play. It's very player friendly and was designed to be one of these easy to use characters for new players that we saw a bunch of in Tekken 7. I think the three most sort of glaring examples of that would be Shaheen, Claudio and Katarina. These three characters who are extremely low execution and very easy to understand. So if you're new to Tekken, you can jump in and do some real combos and play some real Tekken without having to spend months picking up basic execution in the beginning, which is one of those problems that Tekken has. You know, it's hard for new people to get into it because of how difficult the game is and how good everybody who plays Tekken really is. So yeah, I thought she looked cool and I played her back in those days, and that's when her reputation for being kind of a scrubby character started. And I think it happened for three main reasons, which I'm going to lay out now, and once we've laid those out, we're going to talk about her move list and what I think about it. This game right here, you can see I have like a 1-bar connection against this Lily. It was a crappy game, which is why I'm messing up combos and it was almost impossible to play, but the reason I included this and a couple of other games like against Xiao Yu and stuff was that these players tried to use snake edges against me, and I think one of the things that people hated about Katarina, and one of the three reasons I was going to bring up about why people dislike her, is that she has a very powerful snake edge. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is that I played against Lily, who did snake edges against me. I played against Xiao Yu, who did snake edges against me, and of course a big group of Dragonovs who did it as well. And so if you want to go online and do snake edges, it's definitely not something you have to pick Katarina to do. So while she is guilty of having a very powerful snake edge, it's not something that is unique to her whatsoever. And that was one of the main reasons, one of those three main reasons people gave her this reputation of being scrubby in the beginning. The other two reasons I think are a little bit more interesting. The first one is that she has the counter hit 4 string, which is you just press the 4 5 times in a row, and if you get a counter hit, it turns into almost a full combo by just pressing the same button 5 times over. The reason I don't think that's such a big issue is that, well, at its core, that move is an 11 frame counter hit 4, which is a generic Tekken tool that you would see on a lot of different characters. Kazumi has it, for example, and yeah, you see it quite often. Katarina just happens to have a pretty powerful version of it, but if you think that she can just spam her 4 button to get a full combo right there, if you're playing against her, you better wish that she does that over and over, because that means that she's doing a very low damage crappy combo instead of doing her real combo, which is actually pretty good and does a lot of damage. So while, yeah, you could conceivably just spam that out and get a combo every time you score a counter hit, it's definitely not a good option. It's actually going to lose you more games than it's going to win you, because the combo will become very low damage, it won't even have a spin, and you can't wall carry or anything else. So I think it's kind of generic, but a powerful counter hit 4 that, again, you would see on a lot of other characters, but it does have that texture to it of being something you can just spam out and get a lot of damage from. But it's not something that is unique to Katarina at all. The other, the sort of third reason I think she ended up with a reputation of being scrubby in the beginning is that her standard combo back in those arcade days consisted of launch, and then you did back one, back one, back one, spin, back one, back one. She had this very sort of spammy back one that built up her bread and butter combo back in those days, and that coupled with the fact that she had that spammy 4 sort of gave her the image of being a character where you can literally just press the same button over and over and get a great combo, and that's easy and unfair to a lot of people, right? And then once you get past that fact, she's just going to hit you with a knockdown low or snake edge, and then the round's over. So very frustrating to play against, right? That back one handshake combo, they actually patched out. It doesn't exist anymore. If you want to see it, go back and look at some very old arcade games of Katarina and you can see it, but it doesn't exist anymore, so that's not a reason to dislike her these days whatsoever. The standard combo that she has these days is actually powerful. She gets 65 damage on average on an average launcher, which is above average but not exceptionally high by any stretch of the imagination. There are characters that get more. And her combo, while it is not difficult to perform, is not easier than something you would see on a character like, you know, Dragunov, for example, who also has a very easy, very powerful, very easy to perform combo. It's the same with a lot of popular characters these days, and her combo it doesn't stand out as being super easy. It's just a normal standard combo that does some decent damage. So a lot of these reasons that she ended up with a reputation of being scrubby, I think, are actually not completely justified. And I think the reason she's so frustrating to play against actually has a lot more to do with the players who choose to play Katarina rather than the character herself. I think if you have a very easy to use character who has generic, easy to understand tools and a powerful standard combo, a lot of new people who aren't going to play Tekken in the most intelligent and advanced way, let's say, are going to end up playing this character, and then the people who are actually advanced Tekken players and who have a lot of experience and want to be considered skillful Tekken masters, they're going to shy away from her because she has this bad reputation. They don't want to be called scrubs, right? So you end up in a situation where, while the character is not necessarily all that scrubby, the only people who are going to play her are the scrubs. And so when you run into her online, it's going to be one of those players who is going to do snake edges and throws over and over and really frustrate you. And yeah, but if you ended up with some really advanced Tekken players exploring the character, I think you'd find that she's actually kind of generic, sort of mid-tier character without anything particularly offensive in her move list, and definitely nothing that stands out as super exceptionally powerful like you would on a character like your Dragunov and your Deviljin and your Xiaoyu. If we're going to talk a little bit about Katarina's standard move list, her standard move list and the moves that she would typically rotate in a normal game, you will see that you end up with just a collection of very generic run-of-the-mill tools. So if we start with her jabs, it's a very standard jab string. For the 10-frame punish, you just get the 1-2 or the 1-1. She can sometimes collect a mix-up off of her jabs, which is pretty cool. But it's not exceptionally powerful, and if you start comparing it to jabs from characters like the Mishimas, Kazumi, or something like that, they definitely pale in comparison. So there's nothing particularly outstanding about those. Then she has a down forward one, which is her generic 13-frame mid poke, and that's one of the most generic tools in Tekken and something that you see on many characters. Leo has it, Lars has it, Miguel has it, Kazumi has a better version. So that's, again, a very standard tool. Katarina's is good in the sense that it has an extension that jails and it's got pretty good range, which is great for her. But the main reason she gets any traction off of that mid-poke is that she'll try and use it for locking down opponents and then sometimes setting up counter hits, which is good for her. So It's nothing exceptionally powerful, but it's just one of these generic tools that you would see on a lot of characters. She has a 15 frame hop kick, again super generic, a lot of characters have it, like we mentioned earlier. Kazumi has one with crappy range of course, but no, Leo, Elisa, Yoshimitsu, all of these different characters have the 15 frame low crushing hop kick. King has his, and there's nothing exceptional there either. Katarina has good damage and good range on hers, which is why it ends up being her preferred with Punisher. But if you want to talk about low crushing moves that are really frustrating in this game, I think if you start looking at up forward 4 from Dragunov or Orbital from Brian, you're actually talking about moves that are more powerful and more problematic than a normal hop kick that is just going to get you know, punished on block. And even if you want to talk about that category of move, I think, for example, Claudio has a version that is much more frustrating than the one that Katarina has. Another move that you see a lot from Katarina is the down back 3, the slide shoot, which is her main knockdown low. While this can be frustrating to get hit by at the wall because it's going to give a guaranteed follow-up, it is in the seeable range and can get seen, reacted to, and then launched, punished. And if you want to talk about you know, powerful knockdown lows in this game, I mean, we're playing against Devil Jin, and his Hell Sweep is completely unseeable. And the slide shoot, while it does lead to good damage at the wall, characters like Devil Jin that are much more powerful than Katarina definitely don't struggle to get guaranteed damage after a knockdown at the wall. And if we're going to talk about knockdown lows, Demolition Man, Falling Leaf, and all these moves are just more powerful and faster, completely unseeable. So the move doesn't really stand out as something that should frustrate you that much either. Counter at standing 4, like I said, very standard as well. You see a lot of down forward 1+2 grabs from Katarina, but that's something a majority of the cast can do. While she sometimes it has to be very specific with the angle to get a wall splat. If you're playing Kazumi and Josie, you get much more consistent wall splats for the exact same throw. So again, you can take any kind of move that Katarina has that you don't like, and you can find it on a bunch of other characters. So she's just kind of a collection of these very generic Tekken tools, which is why I think that if you changed a couple of things about her, you'd actually just end up with a kind of solid mid-tier character that's easy to use and would be a perfect starting point for a lot of new players, as well as something that might be enjoyable to play by people who are a little bit more experienced at Tekken. We're going to play against a Lily here, who was by far the best player I played against during this session. A lot of good movement and setups, but even this player is going to panic into a snake edge at some point during this match. And again, it's just to illustrate the fact that you don't have to do that with Katarina, and you can do fine by playing a very standard sort of poking style of Tekken, while you definitely can play you know, a heavy knockdown low based kind of shittier version of Tekken with a bunch of other characters. I think if you just took that, we've talked about this before on my channel, how I think that Hell Sweeps don't necessarily need to be in the game. Don't worry about that in this video, but if you were to lift that move off of Katarina and maybe take the spammy nature of her standing 4 away and just make it an 11 frame counter hit move that she would combo off of normally with one hit, the same way that Kazumi would, then you actually have some space to improve and buff a couple of the moves that are more interesting and more technical with Katarina. She has 2 versions of a backswing blow that are unnecessarily bad. I think the back 3+4 has worse frame data than it needs to. It doesn't lead to a combo or anything. And I think that the back 2 is just completely unusable because it doesn't have enough evasive properties. It doesn't dip back nearly as much as it should for a backswing blow. So there are a couple of things you could do to make Katarina a little bit more interesting to use from a technical standpoint. That's her down forward 4, by the way, another good move for her, but you see the exact same move on Josie, you see the exact same move on Brian. So again, it's just something that you can find on any other character, right? And with those changes, maybe this reputation that she unfortunately ended up with as being a scrubby character would go away a little bit, and more players would feel comfortable trying her out, because I think there's a lot of fun to be had playing Katarina, and a lot of potential in the design that I would love to see carried forward, because she's so generic that if you just change a couple of things about her, she could end up having a lot of unique flavor and just being one of these great human martial artist characters going forward, who isn't a big crazy robot who's flying all over the screen or anything like that. She's just kind of a very standard vanilla Tekken character who's great for beginners, and I think that's a great idea, and I actually kind of love the way she looks and plays in a lot of ways. So yeah, I will say, however, that I definitely feel you if you do dislike playing against this character, because when I do run into her online, I get a pulse right away, because I just know that my opponent is going to play in that very frustrating way. It's very rare to run into like a high-level great player who's just maining Katarina, you know. But I'm definitely going to keep on playing her and hopefully develop her a little bit more, because as you've seen in this session, while I can win pretty easily up into the orange ranks, I'm definitely no Katarina master or anything like that. This is going to be the final game of the session where I got the Destroyer promotion, and it's going to be the end of the little discussion I wanted to give you, so I'm going to wrap this up and just let you enjoy the rest of the game. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully you leave your comments about what you think about Katarina in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and look forward to more videos very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye for now.
Round 3. Fight. Stand up. Round 4. Fight. You win.
Você tem técnica, mas não tem alma.